All right, everybody, come on in. Welcome back to another struggle stream. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy. Hi, I'm Maggie. Maggie, the substitute teacher. You all know Lucy. We are just two older women who married young, and we believe in prioritizing marriage and family in your prime. So we are here for the younger ladies who want to do the same and believe the older women should teach the young. So I'm going to go ahead and go right to Lucy and let her say hi to you all and let us know what are we reacting to tonight.
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. And yes, today's live stream comes from Suzanne Venker. She's an amazing podcaster, and she's written some good books for those young ladies that want to learn how to marry young. I'm gonna tell you a couple of the latest books that she's had. One is she wrote in 2021. It's How to Get Hitched and Stay Married. And then the latest one that she's got is How to Build a Better Life in 2024. And it's about once you get married, how to maintain a beautiful married life. She gives you all those tips about, having a functional marriage life. Two other books that I think that would be very helpful for those ladies that in the dating scene is one. It's called Women Who Win at Love. She wrote it in 2019, and then The Alpha Female's Guide to Men and Marriage. She wrote it in 2017, and I think she means by alpha females is those working women that are in high positions of power that are having trouble getting married in the modern world. So yeah, I think this one is, the title of this one is How to Date for Marriage in Any Era. So it's going to be good.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. I'm actually very excited about this one because you all have heard me say, I believe the purpose of dating is to determine if this is a suitable match for marriage or long term. I think dating has been so misconstrued. People are using dating because they're bored, because they want to go out, because they want to get dressed up, because of whatever reason. And you just end up wasting time that you don't have to waste, especially ladies who want to prioritize marriage and family in your prime, which is what we recommend. Lucy and I were both married in our 20s and have a combined over 40 years of marriage experience. So we're going to get right into this if it's something that maybe can help you. Again, like Lucy said, this is Suzanne Venker. The title is How to Date for Marriage in Any Era. So this is about a 25-minute video, but she lists, I believe it's 5 tips. So I fast forwarded to number 1. We will play and then pause it and give you all our take. So your 2 disclaimers, you already know we come from traditional backgrounds here, and that is what we promote for young women. If you want to do something otherwise, that's totally fine. You probably just won't be happy over here. And if you want to watch the video in its entirety without our commentary, it is linked for you on YouTube and Facebook. So we want to know what you all have to say. I see you all on Instagram, and we'll bring your comments into the conversation. So let's go ahead and begin.
Your goal if it is marriage. And like I said, just don't even date if you're not having an eye toward marriage, because you're wasting time. I mean, seriously, it's just, unless you want to somehow bring back what I was talking about last week when I was talking about my in my Mother's Day, where back in the 50s, 40s and 50s, you actually could date several men at once because you weren't having sex with them. So if there's a way to do that, you could actually date several men at once to see if it's a match, to see if they're a match. But you don't hear much about that. You can do it today, but it would be be really smart, but unusual for sure. Okay, so without further ado, let's go through these 7 rules. Rule number 1: let him chase you. I know this seems controversial today, and it shouldn't. The natural order of things is for the man, not the woman, to take the lead in a relationship. After all, you want to be the woman he wants out of all the other women he could have, right? Well, there's only one way to do that. Let him come to you. Don't be the woman who acts all googly-eyed around the guy you like. Play it cool. Men are competitive by nature and love a challenge. They pride themselves on getting the girl other men would love to have. So if you reverse this dynamic by being the one who makes all the overtures, including being the first to text him, as opposed to responding to texts you've received from him, you may get a positive response, but you'll never know if the guy is just being polite or if he's truly into you. Because when a man is interested in you, you will know it. There will be zero confusion on your part. None. Zero. Just none. It'll be that obvious. I know this sounds old-fashioned, but that's why it works. Whatever aligns with human nature will always work. It doesn't matter what year it is. The bottom line is that if the guy you like isn't chasing you, if he doesn't think you're the best thing since sliced bread and he doesn't move mountains to be with you, he's not your man. I mean, that's a little bit of hyperbole. It's okay to be on the shyer side. If you're a guy, you're not necessarily going to go all out, but you still have to make it very clear and known that you're interested in her, and she shouldn't have to pursue you. That's basically my point. And keep in mind that many guys will happily respond to a woman's overtures, especially if she's pretty, even if he's not necessarily into her. They may also keep a relationship going because they either like the sex or they don't want to hurt the girl's feelings by breaking it off, thus making her feel there's hope when there really isn't. Because it can be super hard for a guy to let a girl down and say, there's really nothing here, so you have to be able to read that. Bottom line, when a guy is truly into you, you will know it. There will be no question in your mind as to how he feels. So don't waste years of your life with someone who doesn't fit the bill and who you have to constantly wonder about. Rule number 2.
Oh, this is good. This is so good. I'm so excited. Let's get in here and see what you all think about what she said, because I have some thoughts. So rule number 1, ladies, when a man is interested in you, you will know it. All right. Here's the deal, ladies. I know, and Lucy and I rant about this. The whole reason we have masculinity and femininity, like I always say, we are not equal. We are equally valued, but men lead. And believe me, especially younger ladies, when you have all that energy and all that fight, when you get our age, you're going to crave a man to lead. So that means that you have to choose now for the older version of yourself. And what I see time and time again is women who, because the modern world has kind of blurred those lines, and it's like, I can do anything a man can do. Women are asking men out. God forbid, women are proposing. Women are doing all of these things. They're the almost aggressors in clubs. They're groping. They're doing everything. And did you hear her when she said, a man will respond to your overtures? So he will take you up on that offer. But like she said, especially if you're pretty, if you're attractive, of course, he's not going to turn it down. But ladies, the importance of waiting for a man to show that he's interested is you want to make sure that he is pursuing you. And this is actually a relationship, potential relationship with intention. It's not just attention, because a lot of you all are just getting attention and you think it's going somewhere, and it's going nowhere. And here's the thing. If you think you don't know if this man is interested in you, number 1, give it time. But number 2, you all know, especially ladies who are in your prime, you know when a man makes his intentions known and you don't like him back. You know what it's like to turn somebody down. So you have the experience. So we're not going to act like we don't know. You have the experience when a man is interested in you. And like my man will tell you, when a man is interested, because men are territorial, they're going to start to do things to kind of make you their own. They'll ask for exclusivity. They will see you, they will study you, and then they will make their move. And again, like I always say, we accept with grace or we exit with grace. But young ladies, especially, I'm counseling one right now that has been texting and reaching out, and she's going to see him and she's doing all that. And I knew what it was, but I told her, I said, I want you to keep a journal of everything you're doing and everything he's doing, and just write it down and compare. And every few days I talk to her, have you heard anything back? And the answer is no. So that's your answer, ladies. Wait for it. Husbands aren't just walking around everywhere. So you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
I absolutely agree. Let him chase you. Give him those signs, those signals that you're interested in him too. When he, and unfortunate, I mean, I don't know if it's unfortunate for me, but I don't have that much of experience with different relationships. I was married once when I was very young, 21. And then my second marriage with my husband, my current husband, and that's about it. I think between my first marriage and my second marriage, I dated about 4 times. And one of those 4 was my husband. And it was clear when I knew that he liked me. He looked at me. I looked at him. I smiled. He smiled. He continued pursuing. He found me in different areas of the building. It was just coincidence that we were always there to find each other. But again, they do the pursuing. He was the one who sent me an email saying, "Hey, I thought you were a very nice person. Could we have lunch?" And again, they're the ones that take the initiative when they have that interest. If the man doesn't show that much interest in you, it's because he's probably not into you. Stop chasing. In fact, the more you chase, the more they're going to be they're not going to like it because it's going to be too overwhelming. And they're going to start thinking, oh, this one might be a liability. She's too much. I don't want that. Men are, they know what they want, and they let you know the second they know it's you, that you are the one that he's going to be pursuing.
I could not agree more. We've got a question over on Instagram. So since we're giving dating advice, we have Rox says, will women who led in the beginning of the relationship eventually lose respect or resent her man years down the line? It depends on when you say led in the beginning. Now, like Lucy said, we can give those choosing signals. We can drop our virtual handkerchief. We can let a man know that I'm approachable, I'm interested, we know how to do it, ladies. Hopefully we know how to flirt and make eye contact. And then once you let a man know that you are interested, then you let him take it from there. Now, if you're the one driving the bus, as I was told in my marriage, as a reformed modern woman, I'm always here to tell y'all what I did right and what I did wrong. If you take the leadership position during the relationship, like the young woman that I'm coaching, if you're the one who's, planning everything, making all the decisions, getting in front, we're going here, we're doing that, you don't really have a relationship. You have, what they say, like a son husband or somebody that'll just do what you say, and you will grow to resent that. You will not respect that. And ladies, respect is so much more important than love. You have to respect that man. So that's what I would say. And let him come to you. Like my man, I remember when I let him know I was interested, his response was, "Do you mind if I call you sometime? Like today after work?" And I was kind of like, okay. So, and the rest is history. But ladies, you have to give it time for it to breathe and to be sure you know what you have, because there's no guarantees here. That's why we encourage the young women to prioritize this, because there's no guarantee that it's going to be a match. So you have to make sure that you leverage your youth and beauty when you can. How would you answer that question, Lucy?
I agree with what you said. And I would add that, if you're doing everything in the relationship, sometimes men see it as too much control. Allow them to take control of the relationship, because that's what's going to show you that the man is able to lead in the relationship or in any situation. Again, if you're always controlling all the situations, it's just, I mean, anyone will feel comfortable. Okay, she'll take care of it. Okay, and then later on, you're gonna say, "You have me, I don't know, making all the decisions, making all the changes, making all of this, and you are actually going to resent him for allowing you to take control over situations."
That's so good. All right. So we have 5. We've covered number 1, ladies. So allow him to chase you. If you're taking notes, number 1 was let him chase you. This is Suzanne Venker, How to Date for Marriage. So you ladies who want to get out of the dating game, we're going to continue on. We'll take your questions. And if you all have comments in the chat, we'll definitely bring you into the conversation. Let's go back in.
This is really controversial again, but shouldn't be. Don't offer to pay on the first date. Reasons why a woman should not pay on the first date. The first reason is, as per rule 1, the guy presumably asked you out, not the other way around. And the person who asks should be the person who pays. Seems kind of logical. The second reason is that accepting a man's willingness to pay says a lot about you. It lets him know that you value yourself, that you believe you're worth his spending his hard-earned money on. And that's a great place to start any relationship. The third reason is that when a man pays, it's a great opportunity to set up a relationship in which you're able to receive with graciousness. Just smile and say thank you. This is important, believe it or not, to just learn how to do that. There's this idea that women owe men sex or something else, or well, I don't know what else, because they paid for dinner. That's never been a thing. That's not a thing. Just being able to receive is enough. And as opposed to undermining his attempt at being chivalrous, for example, and insisting on doing things for yourself. This is a crucial part of the dating process. And once again, he's going to take his cues from you. I can't tell you how super important it is to set the right tone on day 1 of a new relationship or a potential new relationship. And when you offer to pay, offering to pay half of the date will cheapen the experience and make it feel no different from 2 friends grabbing a bite. And a date is different from hanging out with a friend, or at least it's supposed to be, should be. So just because you're capable of paying your way doesn't mean you should. Let him take care of it. It's okay later on, if an actual relationship has been established, to start offering to pay for things here and there. I'm just saying that at the outset, you want to set up the dynamic that he's the pursuer and you're the receiver. He leads and you receive. Rule number 3.
Okay, we're getting good. I am so excited about this one. And I want to preface it with a few things before you all go running off into the dark of the night. Yes, ladies, we need to not only, number 1, allow a man to lead in the asking. Like I always say, men are the ones that ask. We accept with grace or we exit with grace. We do need to allow them to lead, have that chivalry, be a gentleman, and let us be on the receiving end. That's another beautiful feminine skill when we appreciate things and we show that gratitude. A couple disclaimers. Ladies, a man will provide at his level. And like I said, the purpose of dating is to determine if this is a suitable match for marriage or long-term. One of the biggest mistakes I see, because women are not really dating with intention. I know too many women, especially who wasted their youth collecting trips and trinkets and $700 dinners. And now in their later years, they are single. You have to look at relationships the way that men do. Men are vetting, especially if they are wife material. One of them reached out to me today. He's like, this is what I'm able to provide. But they do not lead with that until you have earned it. So I am a fan of the coffee dates. Our first date, I think, was at Chick-fil-A. And I was so happy to be there across from that chicken sandwich. And now, over a decade later, we're able to do a lot other things. Was he able to do it back then? Yes. But ladies, one of the mistakes that I see is you all look at women who are getting the 20-year anniversary, 30-year anniversary, or milestone treatment, and you want that on day 1. You have not earned it. So again, if you are dating with the intention of being here for the long haul, all of that will come, especially if that man is able to. It's natural. Men want to pour out for the ones that they love, but they have to establish that first. That's why you have to make sure He's here because he wants to be here, not because he just kind of felt embarrassed to say no to you. All right. So again, have some grace, have some discretion. And I think any date, it could be a picnic, it could be a walk in the park, it could be a coffee date. We're just trying to determine if we both have the same goals and values, and then all of that will come. But yes, allow him to pay. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes. And if he asks you, what's your preference in restaurant? Do not pick Morton's the Steakhouse or something out there, because again, you failed the first test, because that could be him testing to see, what kind of person is she? Is she going to choose something that's more modest? Or is she going to take it up there and say, yeah, I want to go to the 5-star restaurant, take me there for dinner instead of just going to, Subway for a lunch just to get to know each other. Again, that says a lot. I just saw this video of a young man setting up a picnic table with strawberries and fruits for her. And the woman put him on blast when she was saying, no, you're not going to give me as a lunch. I want to go to a better restaurant. It was the saddest thing. It broke my heart. The good thing is that the guy was like, he wasn't bothered. He was like doing anything, but I'm sure that in his heart, inside, I'm sure it hurt him to have that, to have that beautiful gesture, thoughtful gesture to put on blast because it wasn't the right thing. That is awful. And we women need to do better.
I couldn't agree more. And that is precisely the woman, when she sees him married and happy with somebody else, will be kicking herself for turning down that picnic date. Because like Lucy said, ladies, a lot of men who are fully capable, they will test you. And here's the reason why. They're not trying to be mean, even though I jest with mean old mister. Men have to know that you are hitching their wagon to them for better or for worse. And men know that we may not always be able to spend at the finest steakhouse. Can we do that from time to time? Yes. But he needs to know that you're still going to be just as loyal, just as respectful, just as loving if it's a simple home cooked meal or sandwiches. Or I remember when I was married, I mean, you all can laugh, but like we would go grocery shopping at Sam's Club, and the little deli that they have like at Sam's Club and Costco, we would get like, 2 big slices of pizza, and it was the best thing. But it's really just being together. So ladies, like I always say, ask yourself, if you're scoffing at that, if you cannot believe he would ask you for you to go to Cheesecake Factory, if that's beneath you, then fine. Find the man that will provide the date experience that you want. And that's where it will begin and probably where it will end. All right. So just ask yourself why you're accepting this date and what is your goal. Let's see what Gillis has to say here. I am so old. It's very strange for me to even think of offering to pay on a date. Very strange for me for a girl to pay. I've become my parents. I say very ancient things. Yes. I mean, again, young ladies, I'm not going to fight you. Do what you want to. But did you hear her when she said, when you offer to pay, you are basically it's taking the romance out of it. You're basically turning a date into, a couple of dudes going out, I'll get a beer, do what you want to. But like my man said, nothing about you should remind me of another dude. And ladies, here's the nature about men. They want to do it. Being a boy mom, I see the boys working their little part-time jobs and saving their money to be able to take their little high school girlfriends out for a pizza and ice cream. And it means something. And every man that has a little bit of that little boy still left in him. So when you, poo-poo on their efforts, it's really soul crushing. And I wish you all knew that, but this will land wherever it lands. Rodney says the importance of dating is to see if there is some degree of emotional connection between a man and a woman. Initially, monetary value should not be equated to emotional value. Yes. And, ladies, look, I always say this, since we're talking about dating for marriage, You need to be able to discern if this man is able to take care of himself. And like I always say, our job is to see if we can fit into his life, the way he lives right now, the work that he does, the car that he drives, the job that he has. If you can envision yourself in that, then that's fine. It doesn't matter if it's at anybody else's standards. But if you think you're going to get in there and then try to push a man to go beyond what he's already doing, you're going to be at odds in your relationship. Don't do it. Either accept with grace or exit with grace. He will do the best that he can. And he's going to make somebody a great husband. I know that. All right, let's see. Let's go back into number 3. I see something on Instagram. Too Legit says, some women are so aggressive with their wants. And any woman that was ever interested was never looking for where I was going to take her first. All right. So ladies, are you interested in him or what he can do for you? So that was number 2. Number 1, let him chase you. Number 2, let him pay. Let's go in for number 3.
This is a really big one. Never have more than 2 drinks. 1 is even better. Totaler, right? I'm not going to suggest you abstain from drinking altogether when you're out with a guy, but I am emphatically suggesting that in the early days of dating or hanging out, whatever it is, that you never move beyond drink 2. What you do on your own time or with your girlfriends is one thing, but getting drunk on a date is the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, you might as well have not had the date at all if you're going to be drunk while you're on it. It's just a waste of time. How much you should drink will mean something different for everyone in general, depending on your weight and your tolerance. But a good rule of thumb is to just never have more than 2. And if we're talking stiff martinis, I don't know, do we drink stiff martinis anymore these days? The young people, as I say, we do. I do, my generation, but I don't know if younger people do. But if you do, drink it very slowly and just stop at 1 because those things are potent. Sex and alcohol are also potent when you mix them. And nothing good can come of it when you're just getting to know someone. But a lot can be lost. There's a direct link between alcohol and hookup culture. So much so that I'm convinced hookup culture wouldn't even be a thing if there was no such thing as alcohol. That's a whole separate conversation, but important to note here. So be smart and stop at drink 2. Rule number 4.
Oh, goodness. Such a shame we have to say this, but ladies, we live in the real world. And unfortunately, I don't have statistics for you, but how many modern women are self-medicating in various forms to be able to survive the life that they've created for themselves? This drinking, this alcohol consumption, this day drinking is really becoming a thing. I've heard that people are starting to be, abstain from alcohol. Again, do what you want to. Do I have a drink on occasion? Absolutely. But again, like she said, when you're dating, ladies, if we circle all the way back to why are we here, we're trying to make an informed decision. If this, man who is vetting us like we are vetting him is going to be a match for marriage or long term. And if you are inebriated, if your judgment is in any way impaired, you're going to miss things. You're going to do things that unfortunately you may regret. And then also, how does it look, ladies, when I've seen it when I go out and it's like, forget the food. They just want cocktail after cocktail. And if you don't believe the men are watching, they are watching. And what does that say about you? What does that say about your discipline, about your self-control? Again, nobody's telling you, never to drink. Do what you want to. But some of you, I'm sure, have been ruled out because men will give you the rope. They will say, yeah, sure, have whatever you want. And are you able to control yourself with it's best no drinks at all, in my opinion, especially if you're getting to know somebody. This is a stranger to you. You have to be smarter, ladies. But if it's with a meal and you want a glass of wine or a, champagne, that's modest and that's appropriate. Show discretion. But just getting, lit, as the kids say, and just being reckless, you will be remembered for the wrong reasons. And there probably won't be another date after that, if that is a if that's important. And men that are looking for marriage want wives that are responsible. The man that I just talked to before, I asked him, did you have any deal breakers? He said alcohol. Somebody who drinks more than twice a week, I can't do it. So ladies, it's important to the men. What would you say, Lucy?
I agree. The man would see it as a liability, somebody that is unable to hold, their drinking, somebody that drinks more than two alcoholic beverages on a first, second, third date. That says something about that person. So again, they might allow you to get, wild and crazy drinking, but that's not going to be someone to consider for marriage material, because again, they're thinking about the future. Is this the woman that's going to be having our children, and how is she going to cope with stress when life gets hard once we get married? So again, I would say just don't, alcohol shouldn't be had on the first, second, or third date, just because it's just, you want to have your full thinking capacity. You don't want anything to cloud your judgment on those first dates.
I couldn't agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Rodney is saying men are looking for patterns of irresponsibility. That's really interesting and good to know. Ladies, part of the vetting process is to find those chinks in the armor, is to let you relax and just like let you be. My man will tell you, oh, I love letting them relax, just giving them the reins and seeing what they do with it. So you never know, ladies. And I will say, I've said it before, the men that don't give you any, they don't care. You can eat what you want, wear what you want, speak how you want, drink how you want. They don't have plans to keep you around for a long term, because we represent our men. We've talked about that. So a man is looking for reasons to disqualify you, as he should. And I agree with that, because men are signing up to take us on as a responsibility. And so we should be worthy of their investment. Thank you, Rodney. On Instagram, Dream says women should recognize that just like them, men need to be sure before making a serious investment. That's why we appreciate regular dates. And when we truly want more, real men will naturally invest. So yes, ladies, if you've got girlfriends in your ear telling you, a first date needs to be something that you would see out of a movie, you're setting yourself up to be alone. That's not the real world. And those of us in relationships, when you really have a connection with that person, you could be anywhere. You could be doing anything. You could be out. You could be in. You could be spending a lot. You could be spending a little. And that's what I think ultimately we all want. All right. So that was number 3. Number 1, let him chase you. Number 2, let him pay for the first date, because again, ladies, he has asked. Let him lead. And like Lucy said, let him plan it. If he asks you, you can say, oh, I like this type of cuisine, but let him do his thing. All right. You want to know what you're signing up for too. All right. Because if you do everything, then you're going to get in that marriage and say, but I have to do everything. And he's going to say, but I thought that's what you wanted. Ask me how I know. And then number 3 was no more than 2 drinks. I say no more than 1, 0, if you can do it. All right. Let's go back in for number 4.
Don't wear revealing clothing. Keep in mind, once again, before I get into this, we're talking about dating for marriage. We're not talking about dating for fun. So when you have your eye toward a relationship to lead to marriage, your MO has to be very different when you're just la, 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 trying to have fun. So we're talking about dating for marriage here. And what we wear says a lot about what we think of ourselves and how we want other people to think of us. We get back what we put out into the world. So if you dress in a way that attracts a man to your breasts, for example, he's going to pick up on this vibe and make assumptions you don't want him to make. Whereas if you dress classy, you'll attract a man who wants to get to know you for you and not for your body. I mean, bring him toward what you want him to hear. Bring him up to your face and your mind, if that's what you want to connect with, as opposed to your body, because he's going to connect in a different way. You don't need to use your body to get the guy. That's the most important thing that I do not think young women understand today, especially. You do not need to use your body to get the guy. Just be yourself without the alcohol and without the sex. And I'm not saying you need to dress like a nun. It's fine to accentuate what you've got. Just do it in a classy fashion. And the way you behave matters too. If you're giggly and silly and loud, which tends to go hand in hand with alcohol, but you're not going to be doing that if you're following rule 3. So you're much more likely to attract the kind of guy who's not ready for marriage if you act that way, but you're not going to be doing that. Just don't let it all hang out when you're on a date. That's what I'm saying. Don't talk to the guy the same way you would talk to your girlfriends, for example. Don't be the fun, drunk party girl, because a guy will date that girl. I mean, he'll certainly have sex with her, but he's not going to marry her. Party girls are the women guys date until they find the one who's marriage material. Be that girl. Rule number 5.
Ooh, this is a good one. All right, ladies. This one right here is just as bad, probably, if not worse, than the alcohol. Ask yourself, how do you dress for a date? And this one really makes me sad. Like she said, so many young women need to think that they need to show it all in order to get a man's attention. Ladies, you have to know, men know what's here. They want it all. That's just who men are. But the problem is with when you lead with that, we all put our best out front. And if you lead with what every other woman has, to me, it says 2 things. There's really nothing else that you want to draw attention to. There's really no substance there. So it's like, we're trying to get your attention with, all the other things. And like she said, when you are that girl, circling back to number 1, a man will take you up on that. If you're the party girl, if you're the fun girl, if you're the one who they can see you a mile away and they already know what this is, it's not going to last. And when she said that is the girl that men basically practice on until they find a wife. And it's harsh, but we have to say it. So many women think, well, we're spending time together. Well, he's asking me out, or he's taking me out, or we're doing things together, so it must be going somewhere. Not in the direction that you want. And if you've ever had the experience where you were with a man for a certain period of time and then he abruptly ended it and was married shortly thereafter, he was vetting her the whole time for long term. And you were just the party girl. So again, ladies, this has to be something that is really who you are. And men have to be able to see that from afar. You can't be out here walking the streets looking like a woman of the night. And then when you find that serious man, then you're going to get it all, shined up and cleaned up and act like, you could represent him well. Because men are hunters. They're going to look for consistency, or like Rodney said, for patterns of inconsistency. And having all of your body parts out, it just really makes me sad. So ladies, again, of course, accentuate your figure. If you're fit, that's a good thing. We want you to be attractive and be fit. But modesty is so important. Less is more. You will stand out for the right reasons, and it won't be a distraction, because the men really want to know if you're worth keeping around or if you're just going to be the party girl. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and I think modesty is also a good illustration of humility. A woman that is humble is very secure of herself. She doesn't have to show everything to the world because she's already got it inside. So again, this thing about showing your body, just your breasts and your buttocks and all that stuff, there's no need, because the men know what you have. So why show it to the world instead of that one special man that's going to give you that marriage? Again, it's just, and I think it also comes to being humble for everything. I see all these women with all these, these different color hair, with all of these tattoos, with all of these piercings, with these nails that look like they have a community built on top of them. Now they have these like things that they build on top. And they're so, I was having my nails the other day, and I was asking the lady that does my nails, and I said, why are these nails so expensive? And she goes, because of the amount of work that these women ask to do on those nails. Mine aren't expensive. It's just a couple of just a couple of dots of paint and then just shaping them. But again, these women that go all out on everything, again, men, ladies, they don't like that. They want simplicity, a simple woman that goes out there just with very minimal makeup, with their hair just done in just a humble, simple way. The way you dress, it says everything about you. You don't need to have that much attention. For the man that has already decided to choose you, has chosen you because of what they see. And if what they see is all of that, you're probably going to be put in one outside. And then once they choose that one woman that meets all of their criteria, you're going to be the one they choose to marry.
I couldn't agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. But first of all, of course, I got to say thank you to Suave D for the $5 coming in, saying, good evening, ladies. You both look gorgeous. You both look great. Just another Mark is here saying, I joined on a word about modesty, not my worst timing. And Rodney says, marriage-minded men are drawn towards the intrinsic values of a woman, her femininity, and etc. This is a long-term perspective. And yes, ladies, it's so true. I mean, we laugh at it, but all of the adornment, all of the extra effort that you're putting into your looks that are not real, you don't look like a woman that should be taken seriously, because men look at that like, you're going to put more effort into, I have seen it, all these rhinestones and all this foolishness. Like, how useful are you going to be? The man that I talked to earlier, he said, I asked him, what has been your issue, dating women where you are? And he says, I can't find anyone who wants to keep a house and a home. I want to provide, but the women don't want to keep a house. Now, look, if that's not for you, we always say, do your own thing. But ladies, it's important to men that we look like we live in the real world. We're ready for a real relationship. And that's just it's not practical. And like Lucy said, the men don't like it. Yes, absolutely. It's in scripture too about the adornments. So, again, do what you want to do. But this is what my man told me. Look at the men that you admire. Look at their wives in the real world, okay? Not celebrities. Look at their wives and then ask yourself, do they come in through the door all loud and screaming, done up from head to toe? Or are they more reserved, more consistent? Consistency is so important to men, ladies, and our appearance is a big part of it, because they really do want to get to know you. They really want to like you, all right? So that was number 4 about don't wear revealing clothing. Number 3, we talked about don't drink more than 2. I say 1 or 0. Number 2, let him pay. And number 1, let him lead. Just another Mark says, I was talking to a lady friend of mine about why most men do not want women to leave nothing to the imagination when she steps outside. It's a turn off. Nothing to look forward to. She's not my woman. Emphasis on the my. You all see that? Men are very protective and territorial, and they don't want to share. They don't want to share you with the world. They don't want to share you with social media. They don't want everybody's eyes on their stuff. All right. So figure it out and leave something for your man. Make it special for him. All right. Let's go back in for number 5.
Don't go on and on about how smart and successful you are. I have some news that may come as a shock. Men don't care about how smart and successful you are. It's not that men aren't interested in your passions or in what you do for a living. They definitely are. But they're going to notice if your career is your entire focus or identity. And that's not a selling point to a man who's ready to provide and to protect for his family. So if that's the kind of guy you want to attract, you're coming in with your guns loaded about being the provider isn't going to attract that kind of man. In fact, if you ask the average man, I mean, at least a grown man, to write down what he's looking for in a wife, what she does for a living, or how much money she makes, or how successful she is, will not make the list. He's not looking for the same things you are. When you go on and on about your career with a man you're newly dating, it tells him that you're really not ready to settle down, at least not in the way that he would want to settle down. You're not, quote unquote, wife material. Because a man who's ready for marriage is looking for a woman who wants to have children and who's nurturing. And if your career is all you talk about, that's basically going to tell him what he needs to know. Which isn't to say that there aren't plenty of men who will be responsive and they do end up marrying a lot of career women, but it ends up being a problem down the line if their values in that way are not aligned. And it gets very, very tricky there. So that's why I'm saying if you're ready to get married and you want to be a mom and you want to be nurturing and you want to have a family, presumably you're going to bring that side out in the dating relationship. And it's important to make that connection with him early on. Okay, rules number 6.
I was wrong. I think she has 7, not 5. But let's talk about this one, ladies. All of us professional women, we have to stop leading with our accomplishments if we want marriage and family. If you want to be a boss babe, like my man tells you, if you want to carry that until you're 65, that's totally fine. Do that. But just remember what you led with. And ladies, what's really important is that we have to understand why men get married. Okay. It's not the same reason why we get married. And a lot of times we are overlaying our decision making on men. And that is a critical flaw, because again, men are the ones that do the asking. So we have to know what they want and why they want it. Men do not grow up thinking about the day that they're going to be married and being a groom the way that we do. They do not fantasize about it. They do not dream about it. I'm going to tell you what me no mister said. Men avoid it almost as long as they possibly can. And when they finally are like, man, all right, I guess I love her. And I'm like, that is so unromantic. But here's what he said, ladies. It comes with an understanding of, okay, that means I have to be responsible now. I have to set these fun things aside and I need to focus on being responsible. So men are not leading and looking for it the way that we are. Men also marry because they want a family of their own. Most men are still very traditional and believe in an intact family and want a wife and children of their own under one roof. That is what they do all of this for. We've talked about it at length that if the men had it up to themselves, they would be living very, very different lives from the ones that they live in order to attract the women that they want. So they go out and they wrestle that dragon and they slay and they do all of that so that they can come back and offer, this is what I provide for you or will provide for you. All right, if you want something traditional. So like she said, ladies, when you go on these dates, and you all start competing with men and talking about your accomplishments and your degrees and your promotions and the letters behind your name and the businesses that you're going to start and how you're an entrepreneur, all that says to him is, okay, that's the priority for her. I will never be the priority. Family will never be the priority. She's going to continue to chase these achievements because that's what's important to her. So you think you're impressing him, you think you're winning him over, but what you're actually doing is you're removing yourself from consideration because he's looking for a wife that also wants a family. That's why men marry. If you don't want a family, then just, have a relationship or date or whatever, but don't approach a husband if you don't intend to be a wife. All right, what would you add, Lucy?
It also shows that, because you're leading with your career and with your accomplishments, that you have that sense of competition, competitive sense, combative sense, to be assertive because, you got to get the deal done. And, you have been in a position where you are having to be extra assertive. And a man, when he comes home, the last thing he wants is to have a combative woman, quite honestly. I mean, I put myself in my husband's shoes, And to think that he would be coming back to a woman that's going to be, debating him on any decision that he makes, competing with anything that he does out there, just, being another guy in his home, that's not what he wants. That's not what men want. And again, it goes back to, being able to be nurturing. Yeah, you can have a career, but you could also be nurturing, and you have to be able to make that uh, I don't know, be able to distinguish between the career side and the home side. Unfortunately, with us women, it's very hard to separate those things, and that's where things become an issue later on in the relationship.
I couldn't agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Rodney has a question. He says, does having a career-driven mindset diminish a woman's ability to be nurturing? I think so. Lucy just talked about it. Ladies, you have to choose. Are we saying that you can't work? No, of course. Lucy and I both work. But what is the priority? If you have to, if you have a deadline and your family needs you, which one are you going to choose? And ladies, you need to know that before you enter into a relationship. So if the first thing that you talk about at a party is, your big boss job, well, there's your answer. And men are going to see that, and they're going to find someone else that, like Lucy says, is more humble. Discipled One says, ladies, if you lead with your accomplishments, you will be left alone. And this is what a lot of professional women are seeing. We work with these men, but we can't be with these men because they don't choose us. And again, like I said, look at their wives. Good Company Podcast says Mrs. Venker is telling the truth. Seeing her outlook on appearance will always reveal the heart. That's true, ladies. How you dress says a lot about what you think about yourself. All right. Successful MD says, as a man, we are more interested in a woman's character and not her titles. The men are chiming in. Just Another Mark says, it's unfortunate that most women need to work and become successful in order to survive and thrive. They still need to understand that they still have to make a choice and sacrifice accordingly. Yes. And ladies, before I can hear you now, well, what about the men? Believe me, they are sacrificing. You would not trade places with them. So yes, they are sacrificing to take on a woman and a family and that responsibility, work and give 80% of the family and keep 20% to themselves. They are sacrificing. I'll salute. Thank you all so much. Discipled One says, Maggie and Lucy, why don't women lead a conversation with how accountable, loyal, and attentive they are? Ooh. That goes back to the what do you bring to the table, and women get all upset. You can hear the skills that are important to men. Do you talk about that, or do you talk about all the projects that you manage? The Good Company Podcast says the career will never give her purpose, but a placebo effect. Also, with the timing of life, you can't waste time chasing fantasy, ladies. That is so true, ladies. And you have to know, and I've been corporate since college, but you have to understand that these careers, these companies, they will take, your best years, the best and brightest, if you allow yourself to be part of that machine. And then when you age out, like we all do, they will find somebody else to replace you. That's just the game. And men know that. That's why they go in and do that job that they hate, because they have a family that is supporting them. But we women, that's why I say we have to choose. Maybe you can do both, but if you choose career, I agree. A lot of women get to our age and then they look back on all of those, awards and all of those, long nights and extra weekends and deadlines. And they're like, what was it all for? It's not going to matter as much as the relationships that you build. And Tobes on Instagram says, I'm separated and my ex is a doctor and she just couldn't stop about her career. And in reality, I didn't care about that. So ladies, understand all those accomplishments, it's for us. We care more than the men do. So you have to decide if what you want is more important or the man that you want to be with is more important. All right, let's go back in.
Don't date a man who hasn't landed on his professional feet. This is probably the biggest of them all for today's times, because this is what's happening everywhere. It's an epidemic. It really is. Women are not at all taught to look for a man who can provide for them, because that's, taboo to even talk about or think about, even though just about all of them are going to want that down the road. when you're not thinking about it at all, you end up attracting the kind of man who probably won't be a provider. And it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. Women will say, well, there are no men out there like that, or there are fewer of them, which is technically true. But then the flip side of that is, but what are you putting out and getting back? Because chances are, if you're putting out that you're going to be your own provider, you're going to attract the man who isn't looking to provide. So it's a yin and a yang thing. I think there's plenty of quote unquote blame to go around, although this isn't about a blame game. This is just what we're bringing to the table and what we receive back from the universe based on what we're putting out there. So again, this is probably the most important rule of all, since so many women today wind up with men who earn less than they do. Choosing to date and then marry a man who isn't gainfully employed or who earns far less than you do is one of the greatest mistakes women make today. And I have a roster of female clients who would tell you the same thing. It may be progress that more women are successful in their own right and therefore won't wind up strapped, I should say, in the event of a divorce, which is kind of what the message has always been. The problem is that we overcorrect it. By teaching women to never depend on a man and to become their own permanent providers, women no longer think to pay any attention to a man's earning power. Like I said before, the assumption is that it doesn't or it shouldn't matter. But of course, it does matter to women who want to live slower paced, family-friendly lives, which most women do, even if they don't know they do. They eventually find out that they do want to. And you'll wind up making a series of decisions based strictly on the math without considering how this role reversal will impact your relationship down the line. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that old-fashioned advice of, look for a man who can support you still holds true today. It absolutely does. Because most women, once they have a baby, will want the option to stay home with him or her. And it just won't be there if you have a major role reversal and you've had that from day one and you didn't pay any attention to a man's earning power or professional path. So just don't date any man who isn't on a clear professional path or who doesn't know where he's going and how he's going to get there. He doesn't already have to have landed. He has to be on a path, though. He has to have purpose and a plan and a means of getting there. And I'm not talking riches. I'm talking stability, purpose, and a plan. Really, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, although it has gotten to be very difficult for young men to do today. There's no question about that. But again, we just need to instill that message back into women and not be afraid that it sounds old school, because ignoring it is causing tremendous pain down the road. Okay, the last rule number 7. Move on if he can't commit later on. Pretty provocative finding, actually.
Oh my goodness. I lost count here, but I wanted to speak to this one and share a brief story time, because this one hits home. When she talks about, ladies, you have to make sure that you are exclusively dating and marrying a man who is, we'll just say, established. And again, we are not talking about, it doesn't have to be 6 figures. It doesn't have to be a luxury lifestyle. But I remember on our honeymoon, we did an Alaskan cruise, and the old cruises, 20 something years ago, you would go to dinner at these big round tables. Think of it kind of like banquet style. And so you would be sitting there with, people you didn't know. And the whole plan was to meet people, strike up a conversation. And, I was, I'm Maggie, I'm going to change the world, very headstrong. And so happy to be married and newlywed. And I remember we sat across from this older couple, and I couldn't wait to tell people that I was married. God. And I'll never forget it. This older couple, probably in their 60s or 70s. And she took one look at me and she was like, she said, "Can he provide for you?" And I remember how offended I got at the question. Modern woman thinking. I was like, I work. What does that mean? I was one of those that was kind of like, I thought that being provided for meant that I was a slacker. And I'm a lot of things, but lazy isn't one of them. And I never forgot it to this day, because fast forward 7 years later, when you have a family and you want to stay home with your little one, but you've put yourself in a breadwinner or 50-50 kind of role. My husband told me, he was like, we need both incomes. And ladies, I cannot tell you how crushing that is when you've waited and put it off for years and you have put yourself out in front. So learn from an older woman here. It would be better to have a little 2-bedroom apartment and make do with leftovers and home cooked meals. But when you got the McMansion and you've got this lifestyle that you're living for everybody else, you realize, like she said, all of us women, I believe at our core, if you don't, fine. Eventually, we do want to have a slower life, and all these things that you think are important, they're not important. So yes, she also said, doesn't mean that he has to be, doing something extravagant, but ladies, is he stable? Is he consistent? Does he have, a field of work that he's been doing for a while? Can he take care of himself and a potential family? Lucy and I are going to be teaching the wife lessons. It starts in just a couple of weeks. It's going to be starting on Saturday, March 8th. So ladies, we're going to talk about what to look for and be very specific so you all don't waste time that you don't have to waste. But yes, ladies, so many of you waste time with men who aren't established. Doesn't make them a bad person, but he's not a husband, or he's not a husband yet. And you're wasting time doing whatever you want to do. And then when you realize, I'm sick of having to do fill in the blank, whatever it is, your best years are gone because you got distracted by whatever it was that got your attention. So make sure you exclusively date men that you could see being husband material, because there's no guarantees. What would you add, Lucy?
And if you're young, you gotta have your dad or your brother or your uncle vet that man. Because again, when we're young, we know what we're really looking for in a man. So the man in your environment, in your family, they're going to be able to see whether that man has stability, has purpose, and a plan by the things that they ask when they're talking to him. So again, I see myself back when I was 21 years old. My dad, my brother, they could tell immediately if when that person, that man, whether that was a good match for me or not. And they know it on the spot. So again, if you're too young to see whether that man does have those characteristics, just ask, somebody that you love, to a man that is, within your family or somebody that you trust, to do that vetting for you. They will tell you in a minute whether that man is worth your time or not.
Absolutely. And ladies, you have to listen, young ladies especially. If you have someone who loves you and is saying, I don't know, listen to that. Because unfortunately, too many women seek out help after they've already messed it up, after that ship has sailed. And I'm just going to say it, men who want marriage and family aren't looking for older wives. They just aren't. Ask the men. All right. So make sure you lock yours down when you have your leverage. Rodney says marriage-minded men are drawn towards the intrinsic values of a woman, her femininity, etc. This is a long-term perspective. And ladies, yes, we've talked about it, how men are long-term thinkers. All right. So what it is right now is great, but they're thinking about, do you have the character to last the long haul? All right. Let's see. I want to catch up to where I was. All right, we talked about the placebo effect. Successful MD says a person can have balance. You all are liking the comments. I'm glad our perspective is helpful. Successful MD says everything in life evolves around discipline, awareness, and accountability. Just another Mark says, that's another good point, Maggie. It's very true. When many of us men truly fall in love with a woman, there's a sense of, oh no, she got me, but I love her. All right, ladies, so wait for it. It's worth it. Successful MD says, too much emphasis on money and titles to the point where people overlook the basis of having a life itself. Good Company says, I came across more ladies who dread marriage versus excited for the future, being a wife and a mother. It really turns guys away from pouring into that. Gosh, that's so true, ladies. These careers, they will have you thinking that's the best thing you can do, not to the man that you want. All right. So I'm glad this is helpful. Rodney says there's a big difference between being in a relationship with a man who's a provider and a partner. Y'all know how I feel about that word partner. And Ronnie says a man without vision is normally going around in circles. So yeah, let him figure it out on his own. Men have to learn by doing. Ladies, this is nothing you can expedite. Let's go back in and let her finish.
I have some news that may come as a shock. Men don't care about how smart and successful you are in connection with him early on. Okay, rule number 6. Don't date a man who hasn't landed on his professional. I think there's plenty of quote unquote blame to go around, although this isn't about a blame game. This is just what we're bringing to the table and what we receive back from the universe based on what we're putting out there. So again, this is probably the most important rule of all, since so many women today wind up with men who earn less than they do. Choosing to date and then marry a man who isn't gainfully employed or who earns far less than you do is one of the greatest mistakes women make today. And I have a roster of female clients who would tell you the same thing. It may be progress, very difficult for young men to do today. There's no question about that. But again, we just need to instill that message back into women and not be afraid that it sounds old school, because ignoring it is causing tremendous pain down the road. Okay, the last rule, rule number 7. Move on if he can't commit. Just move on. A great rule of thumb for deciding if it's time to jump ship is that if your guy hasn't proposed by the middle of year 2, he's probably not going to. This will be different, of course, if you met your person in high school or college, or if you're dating at age 20 versus at age 30. But if you are dating at age 20, you're probably not planning to get married right now anyway. So age has a lot to do with the question about how long you should stick with the same guy. Most men won't commit in their early 20s because men mature later than women, and because men prefer to be really established before they make that move. So that's one rule of thumb. Still, too many women who are well into their 20s and even 30s waste years of their lives hoping they can talk a boyfriend with whom they may or may not be living into marriage, or they simply hope he'll change his mind and pop the question. But you need to discern whether or not a man is marriage material early on in the relationship, and then don't stick around if he isn't. That's how women get into trouble, because they wind up wasting months or even years with the wrong man at a time when they really cannot afford to. You'll know right away when you're dating a man whether or not you and he are on the same page with respect to marriage. I mean, it's kind of obvious, really. These are natural conversations that occur when you're dating. If you don't know, then you're not communicating the way you should be when you're out together. Either which way, the bottom line is that if your guy hasn't made any overtures, or if you have to, God forbid, wonder what he thinks about marriage as an institution or the worthiness of marriage, then just run. He's not the guy for you. Don't you want to marry a man who you know with every fiber of your being loves you and only you? Wait for that guy. So that's it. That's how to date for marriage in any era.
All right, y'all, let's wrap this up. I thought there were 5, but there are 7. Basically, the last one is, ladies, exit with grace. And I think that exit with grace, if it's not if it's not mutually reciprocated, then you need to find where it is. And wasting your time or trying to convince, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to guilt a man, shame a man, wrestle him to the ground, give him ultimatums. We've talked about all of that, ladies. It's not going to work. But again, circling back to the very beginning, I think all of these stack onto themselves. If you wait and you let a man lead, if you let a man ask, a man who is dating with serious intention will make his intentions known in the beginning. He's not going to leave it like up to interpretation. He's not going to leave you guessing and kind of doing these weird things that you're like, is he into me? Is he not into me? He will let you know. He may come out and say, look, I don't want to waste time. I want a serious relationship. It took me a while to get here, but I'm looking for a wife. And, we've talked about how sometimes you might think, oh my gosh, that's a bit forward, but it's taken him a long time to get there. So our job, ladies, especially if you want a traditional relationship, is to be ready when that husband material man is. Because if you think you're going to play games or wait it out, the men get there when they get there. So, like she said, everybody has their own timeline, but I agree. If he's not even hinting at it, if he's not talking about the future in a way that includes you, like Lucy says, bringing you into family events, introducing you to people, if you're completely cut off and separate and you have no idea, you just get a call and it's like, are you free this weekend? If he's not including you into his life, he really doesn't have intentions for you. So all of this circles back to why it's really important that you need to wait for the man who is ready. And ladies, hopefully this list of 7 has shown you that there are a lot of men, but there aren't a lot of husbands. And if you want marriage, you need to be able to discern who is a husband and who is not. And again, the ones that aren't doesn't make them a bad person, but you all just waste your time with everybody, and then you come with your hair on fire. Now you're ready for marriage, but you didn't choose wisely. So I'm begging you, please choose wisely. What would you say to close us out, Lucy?
And young ladies, even though society, the movies, entertainment world is telling you that it's okay to not be intact when you first meet the love of your life, I think if you keep yourselves intact, it makes you one in a million. So again, they talk about, this body count and whatever. Believe it or not, it's still important to men how many other relationships you've had, intimate relationships you have, for them to make that decision to make you marriage material. Anyway, I think she's amazing. The books that she's written, the way she is straightforward, telling you the truth about modern dating and modern life is amazing. And I ask that young women start, subscribe to her podcast and read her books, because she offers a lot of important information on how to have a functional, traditional marriage, traditional family life in this modern world.
Couldn't agree more. This was a really good one, some positivity for you all, hopefully, especially the young ladies that want marriage and family. This was helpful for you. I know I didn't get to all the comments, but thank you all so much. Rodney says this is an excellent list of 7 qualities about marriage-minded men. So again, Lucy and I do have a class coming up. You can use code WIFE for $50 off. The link is in the description, teachablemoments.maggie.com. Thank you, Suave D, for the support. We appreciate it. And we'll be back with you all maybe Saturday. So we've got some good stuff coming up. But until then, we will say adios.
Adios.